Good morning, world. Meria here, alive and kicking. Welcome to Awaken with Meria and Monica. Two women that have over 100 years experience between the two of us. Even though we're both still in our early 20s. Yeah, sure. As if you're not familiar with Monica Sepulveda and her fabulous work, Monica's extremely gifted and an extremely great teacher. Get over to Monica with two N's.com. I have a link right here for that. And check her out, because if you're listening to the show and you love us, like so many people seem to do, and I get to post these on YouTube, then take advantage of us while we're still here. And I don't mean take advantage of us in a bad way. Good morning, Monica. She's already giggling. I do want
Maria, I was just thinking about if they went to Monica.com was spelled with one N, it used to be a porn site. So,
So be careful, people, with the way you spell.
Yes.
Anyway, Monica, I know today we want to talk about numerology and the importance of numbers. It's interesting because, as you know, I'm just putting my house back on the market, and I have a new
Yes.
I have a new realtor. And when he came over and I said, "Listen, your pricing's way out of reach," I said, "and here's the number I want you to do." And he kind of looked at me a little awry. And I said to him, "Listen, I know you may think this is crazy, but to me, numbers matter. I believe in numerology." And he said, "I figured you did." So, it was able to open up a little conversation with him to kind of get a feel
Yeah.
of where he is.
Hmm.
And when I told him, numerology, astrology, I said, a lot of people think it's garbage, it's just, fluff. I said, but I've lived long enough to know that there's a lot more to it than people give credit to.
Well, there's a lot of things on this planet that are here to help us, and people just overlook it. We don't. The more we know that we don't know. So
Mm-hmm.
I started studying numerology back, oh my gosh, probably late 70s, early 80s. And I realized, wow, because I was also an astrologer back then. I had a great teacher. We used to do everything longhand because we didn't have computers back in the day. The
Mm-hmm.
astrology charts took forever, and numerology charts took me 4 hours because I had to do logarithms and all this stuff. And nowadays, you could just punch in this information, and you'll get the information in like 10 seconds
Right, you can
on your
just get it.
computer. So it's
Right.
kind of nice.
You can get an app or a program. It's sort of like, checking out your biorhythms every day.
Oh, and that's essential too. But numerology for me, I was attracted to it because it is in concert with I've been listening to the trial too much. I don't even want to listen. I don't want to say that word concert because that's what they're using. The Republicans are in concert with the White House. I got to stop that. Okay. They are synchronized perfectly. Numerology and astrology will give you the same readout regardless. It's amazing. They don't clash.
No, and what's interesting is, even when I had, Joe Anthony on the show, and his thing is astrology. He did a show with me for many years. It was interesting because some of my listeners would go to Joe and get their astrology done, and then they would book a reading with me, and it would be pretty much identical to what Joe told
Yeah.
them.
Exactly. That's the third component. Getting a reading will also be in synchronicity with the other things, too. If you get a good reader, of course, if you call those 1-800 numbers, not so much.
No, and actually, years ago I had submitted an application to work for those 800 numbers. And it was interesting because they tell you basically you're reading off a script, and
Exactly.
how long you have to keep people on the phone.
Hmm.
And of course, that wasn't for me. There's certain things that I would rather starve than have to do that. I just,
Hmm.
when you have integrity, it's different. And
Absolutely.
when I read for somebody, they know that they can trust me. They know that information's going nowhere else.
Yeah.
However, having said that, since a couple of people this week have written me about some angst that they feel and they have a misunderstanding, specifically about when you are talking on the show about your dad and,
Hmm.
the conflict. I don't even know if it's a conflict, from the abuse to loving him.
Hmm.
They don't have a good understanding of how things really work.
And it's good that they bring up those points because that's what they should study next. That's what I used to do when something was confusing. I didn't understand that. I would go and learn about that next. Because obviously it's brought up to your attention for a reason. It's not a coincidence.
No, and
So, yeah, I went from not liking my dad so much because I had a very rough childhood until, before he passed, we made, peace. And then after he passed, he helped me tremendously and realized that my dad actually helped me resolve my past life. Mm-hmm. In fact, I had to travel to several places in Europe in order to resolve that and realize why I chose him as my dad, because we do choose our parents, just like we choose our birthdays, just like we choose our own names. So it wasn't a coincidence. I did have some karma to pay from that past life.
Right. And the truth of the matter is sometimes it may not even be nasty karma. It might just be unfinished business.
This was nasty karma.
Right. I think about that movie with Christopher Reeve, Somewhere in Time.
Oh, I love that movie. It's one of my favorites.
Right. I don't know anybody that doesn't love that movie.
And I met Jane Seymour. We walked together in the Nicole Simpson candlelight vigil after she was murdered in the whole OJ thing. We marched on Bundy Drive with candles lit, and she was right next to me the whole time, pregnant, like 8 months with her twin sons. So I got a chance, just like a stupid fan, to say, I really like that movie.
Right. But I mean, they have so many different movies. Think about the movie What Dreams May Come.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect movie of reincarnation.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's another one too with Timothy Bottoms and Glynis McInnes. Is that her name? I forgot. Glenn McInnes. I forgot. Anyway, that one's good too because they show two different lifetimes, and it's amazing what happens. I'll get the name before we hang up, but it's a must because whoever did the research on this movie, they got it spot on.
Well, that's
and not a lot of people know about it.
Right. That was my thought when I watched What Dreams May Come the first night in the movie theater. I stayed for the credits, which I never do, because I wanted to see who wrote it, because it was so accurate. And then I went to see it 2 more nights in a row, because I was blown away. I was blown away by the art. I was blown away by the colors. I was, making my living as a painter then. And then, mixing that in with my spiritual knowledge, I was like, wow, this is like a perfect film. And they didn't have an easy time of it every time they came back together. But it's because you choose what you want to experience each lifetime. So truthfully, for everybody listening, I know this is going to be hard to wrap your minds around, but you have never made a mistake. I like to recommend, the interviews I have with the top kahuna in Hawaii, Dr. Serge Kahili King, which I still have in my archives because he teaches what he calls blanket forgiveness. And it's one of the easiest, most powerful rituals a person can do. I don't know if you've heard that. It was an old show, so you probably haven't. But it's a simple...
What's it called again?
It's called, his name is Dr. Serge Kahili King. But it's
okay.
called, the practice is called blanket forgiveness. And it's very easy, okay? All you have to do is look in the mirror every morning for a week or 2 and say out loud to yourself, I forgive you for every stupid thing you've ever done, and walk away.
Yeah, because life is about choices. It's not about mistakes. It's really about choices, and the choices have repercussions, good or bad, and the key is to learn. Like I said earlier when we were talking, the only time we lose is if we lose the lesson, but we're allowed to make mistakes. It's okay to make choices that bring about consequences. There are certain things that we did not want to experience, but we get to learn from those things, and that's how we grow. So definitely, a lot of people need to say, I forgive you, because we are so hard on ourselves every single day. I find that has been consistent since I started doing readings professionally in 1972, that the biggest lesson is self-love. As soon as we say, I forgive you, like you said, my gosh, it's wiped away.
Right.
And I learned that when I was sitting in Auschwitz, right where Mengele was selecting the people to go to the left or to the right. I was sat right there. And at that point in time, I kept saying to myself, this should give you a clue about my past life. I kept saying, please forgive me. And they said, no, forgive yourself. And I went, oh,
right,
yeah.
Right. But the second
part
of the second part of that little technique is to not think about what you want to forgive yourself for or any specific issue. Just say it and walk away.
Yeah, well, you're sitting in an house, which is kind of different.
Well, yeah, well, run away. Run away. But
It's so weird because I remember in my past life I couldn't get out of there, and I was shot. And this time when I was trying to get out of there, my friend was still missing. I couldn't find her, and I sat out for 2 hours. I said, damn it, I'm still not able to get out of this place. She finally shows up 2.5 hours later, and I'm like, where have you been? I've been wanting to get out of here. Oh, I was on the tour. I go, Jesus.
Right.
I kept saying, get me out,
Right.
So I videotaped all of it.
Well, that's good. But, with Serge, it was interesting because I knew of him, but I had never met him. But I knew that he used to teach on occasion with Sun Bear. And I went to Hawaii with my husband at the time. And when we landed on Kauai, and I remembered that he lived in Kauai. So I told my husband, well, I'm going to look and see if I can find Serge King while I'm here. And my husband's like, what do you think? He's just going to be listed in the phone book? Well, he was. So I called him and I told him I was a student of Sun Bear, and he invited me to one of his Sunday events. And it was like sitting in the same presence as sitting with Sun Bear. They were so alike. And at that time, I was not doing radio. But I always remembered him. So even when I started doing terrestrial radio, I contacted him and got him on my radio show. And of course, when I moved over to my podcast, I think I might have 2 interviews with him in the archives. But he's one of the most beautiful teachers on the planet. He's a realist who has his feet firmly on the ground and his mind firmly in spirit. So, listen, you follow your path wherever it goes. And if other people say, yeah, you can't do that, or yeah, like you're going to find them in the phone book, do it anyway.
Do it anyway, because your intuition gives you the information, and it doesn't lie. By the way, I found the movie. Everybody write this down. You must go rent or get a copy of Made in Heaven. Kelly McGillis and Timothy Hutton. Talk about a great movie about past lives.
I've seen that. That was a good one. But here's the thing about the movies, and there's so many of them on past lives. I always think of the one with Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep, which I thought was a hoot. For us to create movies about these things, we innately know, as spiritual beings having a human experience, what the truth is. Otherwise, we would not be able to create from our imagination, which is our intuition, movies like that. I find
a lot of people think they're making stuff up, and they're not. We are receivers.
Right.
Even people that write books or paint, if they're being inspired from another dimension. People that invent, like Tesla or Einstein or Da Vinci, they all plugged into a higher dimensional frequency, which gave them the pictures or the information, auditorily, visually. Most of them got pictures, though, and they did reverse engineering. Took it apart, put it back together, and that's how they learned it. Mm-hmm. That's what they do in Area 51, too.
Right. Well, what I'm noticing now, by the way, Andrew Yang just said if he becomes president, he's going to tell the truth about Area 51. I don't know if you saw that or not.
I kind of like that guy.
I do, too. Anyway, what I'm noticing now when I watch, what's being offered on TV, especially series, is there are multiple series now about the light side and the dark side. Demons, devils, shapeshifters, you name it. And it's like, oh my, look at another show on the same type of topic. So, sometimes there's a lot of truth being given to us as entertainment. And to me, I just see it as the planet is awakening to the fact that this planet is controlled by a lot of dark spirits.
Well, didn't it start out in the 70s with Star Wars?
I would think so, but it's probably older than that. I mean, we can go all the way back to that, the day the Earth stood still with Michael Rennie.
The Day the Earth, you just took the words right out of my mouth. I have a copy of that movie. The Day the Earth stood still, 1961 with Patricia O'Neill.
I know.
That was really good.
It was terrifying. It was terrifying at the time.
Scared the crap out of me.
I know movies have certainly come a long way. But I think that let's just say the theme for today is to remember that you're a spiritual being having a human experience. It's not the other way around. Right.
And what was the famous quote from that movie? George? Baraga Nikto something or other?
Yeah, I think it was something like, I think that might have been the movie where he says, if you humans can't take care of this planet, you don't deserve this planet.
Yeah, this was when he was talking to the robot to go out and, he woke him up and said Gort, Barada, Nikto, something like that.
I think the robot's name was like Clacto or something like that.
Yeah. You know what I'm doing right now, right? I'm Googling it.
Oh. Well, you know, for me as a child, one of the most frightening movies, but I knew it was real when I was watching it, was Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Now, they've redone that movie twice, but nothing compares to the first black and white with, Jesus, what was her name? Carolyn, she used to play on The Addams Family.
Carol, yes, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, that movie was terrifying.
Okay, I got the quote. Klaatu, Barada, Nikto. That's what you said to Gort, the robot.
All right.
So I have OCD, so I have to find out the details about stuff like this.
All right, so before we back on into, we'll save it for the second half of the show, backing on into, you know, what happens to us when we cross, and good people, bad people, which I think is all judgment in a lot of ways. Let's get into the numerology, because I want my listeners to know that when I decided to relist my house, the first thing I did was call Monica to have her do the numbers for me. And Monica was kind enough and wonderful enough to do the work and give me the best prices to list my house at. I don't know that a lot of people know enough to do that or know what could happen if you buy a house that has the wrong numbers on it.
Yeah. It can definitely make a difference in expediting the sale or delaying it. So here's the key. Let's start off with everybody getting a reading. I need you to get some pen and paper, and because you're going to have to do very, very simple math. If you can do it in your head, that's fine too. But you're all going to get a reading when I tell you about these numbers, because we're going to look at your personal year. The personal year is the theme for the year. These are the things that are going to be happening, but they can either come about in the positive or the negative based on the frame of mind that we're in. Mm-hmm. So obviously we want to strive for the positive, because the negative ones are not very good. So, but we have a choice. We have free will on this planet, and we can choose how we want it. So what happens is that in numerology, which is I studied the Pythagoras system, which is from Greece, Aristotle. Mm-hmm. Am I right? Okay, well, I don't know. This was a long time ago. I just focus on the numbers now. So here's the key. What you do is you take the month of your birth. Let's say, mine's 4, so I put the number 4. I'm born on the 10th day, so I put 10. 4 plus 10 equals 14, and that equals a 5. So I circle the 5. Maria's is 1221. That would be a 3 and a 3, because 1 plus 2 equals 3, and 2 plus 1 equals 3, 1221. You always reduce to a single digit. So she has a 6. Then you take that number and circle it, and then you add it to the current calendar year, which is 2020. Obviously, that is 2 plus 2 equals 4, and you circle that. Then you take the two circled numbers and you add them together. So Maria's is 6 plus 4 equals 10, and reduced to a single digit, which means that she's in a 1. Mine is 5 plus 4, because 2020 is a 4, and that totals to a 9. Numerology, in the terms of a personal life year cycle, or personal year, that runs in cycles of 1 through 9, or 9 years. So 9 is an ending cycle, 1 is the beginning. So Maria's got new things happening. So if your birthday totals with the current calendar year to a 1, this is what you can expect. New beginnings. Setting new goals is really important, because if you want strawberries to grow in your backyard, they're not going to plant themselves. We have to plant them. So that means the 1, we need to take initiative on all things. If we just sit and do nothing, you end up with a bunch of weeds in your garden and you don't get your strawberries. So take note that gardening, to me, always is a good analogy for life. Mm-hmm. So the 1 is new beginnings. It's setting new goals. It's being excited about new changes, getting unstuck, because the past 9 years before that, there could have been things that you went through that maybe you learned from or maybe you didn't, but you have a fresh start. So it's like a brand new chapter. And the negative side of the 1 would be self-centeredness, egotism, selfishness, stubborn, not being, what's the word I want? What's the opposite of stubborn? Easygoing. Okay, so those are the ones. And therefore, that's being closed-minded and only focused on self rather than focused on things that you can do that are not only going to help yourself but others. We could also set new goals about what we want for ourselves. And I always tell people in a 1 year, go and get yourself a balloon that's made of that vinyl, not the mylar. The mylar are the silver ones. Don't get those. Get the other ones and pick your favorite color. They fill it with helium. Then get a Sharpie pen and write on one side of the balloon what you want to let go of, what you had difficulty with, whatever sabotage you, whether it's people or your own thoughts and beliefs. Write it on one side of the balloon. The other side of the balloon, what you want to do is write down all your goals, the things that you want to complete in this new cycle, and especially start in the new year. Because remember, in a 1 year, because remember a 1 represents the planting of new seeds. Mm-hmm. Now, just because you plant strawberry seeds, they're not going to grow the next day. You have to be patient. So on the flip side of the balloon, write all the stuff that you want help with, and then go outside during the daylight and say, my desires, the positives and the negatives, is what I'm working on this year, and I'm working in tandem with the source of love, higher power, the I am, spirit, God. I don't say the universe because the source of love actually created 3 trillion galaxies, so I wouldn't just say universe. That's very limiting. And I also don't say male or female like in traditional religions. So I always say the source of love. We're working in tandem to make this happen and to manifest, and I give thanks today. Then you let go of the balloon and keep watching it until it disappears. And I've said this before on the show, but maybe people are listening to it on the first time. But this is a good time to do that, is in a 1 personal year.
Right.
If your birthday totaled to a 2, think about the scales of justice, 2 sides. That represents, obviously, balance. And a lot of people do things to create unbalance in their life because they're so focused just on one thing, like their job. By the time they get home, they're so exhausted they can't even relate to their spouse because I don't want to talk. I need to decompress.
Right.
Here's how you find balance during the day. Take breaks every 2 hours. Even if it's 5 minutes, just get up from whatever you're doing, walk away, take in some, fresh air, have some water or maybe some fruit or something, and then come back and continue. Not only do you find balance when you do that, but you also remember your dreams. So that's another good reason. Balance is the problem that most people are having. Also, the 1 challenge, I forgot to say this part. In the 1 challenge, people are too hard on themselves. They do self-critiquing. They go, why didn't I learn this lesson? How come I made this choice? I mean, talk about beating yourself up. Hello, stop it. That I forgot to leave that out. I forgot to include that in the last one for the 1, but it is really important to remember not to berate yourself, not to criticize yourself, but just simply say, okay, I made a choice, didn't bring me what I wanted, so what can I learn from that? Right. Well, I don't like what it manifested, so I'm going to make some changes on the inside because we create from the inside out.
Right.
So that's the 1. That's the 2. Number 3, it could be an incredible experience or it can be a nightmare. 3 is the number of creativity, intuition, connecting to the heart, listening to your hunches. It's about music because things like music and art and intuition, all that stuff, continues balance, but it also is a number of joy. Mm-hmm. And if we stay on the positive side of it, we'll be guided constantly about making the right decisions because we're not supposed to make decisions based on what we think about things. That's too left brain. Mm-hmm. That brings up the past and emotions and all the fears and stuff. Intuition gives you the truth, it gives you guidance, and it can only tell you what you're capable of doing. It's not going to tell you you're going to become a rocket scientist if that's not which cloth you're cut from. Mm-hmm. It'll probably inspire you to do something like it did with me. Write a book, Monica. Okay, mm-hmm. I'm not a writer. And my friend David, I said, yes, you are. Just write the book. So I started writing the book, realized that it's actually coming through me. So that's a positive side of it. 3, it's joy, it's learning, it's teaching, it's expressing, it's teaching others. It is intuition, it is a guidance, it is music, everything creative. Go out and plant some things in the garden, use your hands. The negative side of the 3, if we don't do any of what I just spoke about, guess what is it? Oh, my God. Depression, emotional roller coaster, really serious arguments, fights, even if your house totals to a 3, be careful about that because I lived in a house that was a 3. And it was either harmonious or we had screaming matches. That was back in the day, like in the 80s. And I realized, this house is a 3. Not good. Because you can take these numbers and apply them to your home, to your, not only your birthday, but your home, your license plate.
Well, let me
When I look
ask.
at license plates, I can easily see which cars are going to have problems with either leakages, plumbing, or fires or crashes.
Right.
So this is very real stuff.
Well, my license plate just says my name. So,
Uh-huh.
so it's funny because when I'm parked outside my gym, a lot of old friends I haven't seen like in a year or two will see my car and see my plate and come in and say hello. So I don't have any numbers on my car. But let me ask you this because you're talking about house numbers, and I've had people ask me about it too. Sometimes they'll come up with, here's my house number, here's the apartment number. And some people will add the apartment number, some people won't. And then if they don't like the house number, they say you can add the zip code. What are your feelings on that?
Well, my feeling is this. I take everything separately. Like when I live in a zip code, I want to get the vibe for the town. So I tend to go toward certain numbers that are like 8s or 3s or 1s, Like I just moved out of a zip code that was an 8, which is, it's pro-financial gain. So I moved to here, and it's a 1, which is a new beginning for me. I've been here 18 months. And I like to see the vibe of the city and how it thrives. And in fact, where I used to live before, people there were multimillionaires, building big homes from Silicon Valley. And, it was a different lifestyle, but it was not pretentious. It was really nice. People were positive and liberal. So I love that. No GOP people around. So I like that vibe a lot. That's why I was there 27 years. And so when it comes to the building, that's the vibration of the building. So if you've got a number that's really somber, like a 7, that could be positive or negative. Again, based on what each individual is focusing on that year, whether they plugged in or not plugged in, you can get a vibe for the building. But I look at the individual apartment number as the space of the person that lives there. So I do not, I don't run the numbers together.
Oh, okay.
Like I'm 1010. So, which is, again, my birthday's on the 10th. So that generally vibes for me very, very well, because you'll find that every place that you live, everything that you've ever gone through, they all total up to the same as your master numbers, which contains your birth date and your name. There's 3 major numbers that we have. Mine are 1, 3, and 9, which is also a 4. And everything, I took 50 different incidences in my life, and I totaled up the number to a single digit, and they all totaled to one of those 3 numbers. And I learned that from a book. I'm still trying to locate it because I believe it's in a box. But they followed the son of Sam, and his numbers were 4 and 8. And every time he committed a crime, it was either on a 4 or an 8. He used a 44, and it kept coming back to the same numbers. So this is not coincidental.
Right.
Not coincidental.
Well, no, it's kind of remind me of the Zodiac Killer as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. And I have a series about him, and they solved who he is. He died, guess where? In Santa Cruz County, where I just moved from. Oh, my God. That guy scared me. I was so scared back in the day because that was happening the same time as Charles Manson.
Right. Well,
that's
that's
in the Bay Area.
Well, I lived in New York, and I was, I don't remember, maybe 18, 20, when the son of Sam was going around killing brunettes, and it was a very scary time. You didn't feel safe.
Cut their hair.
Right. You didn't feel safe anywhere. And I had long hair then. It's probably for the last time in my life.
Oh, my God. Well, anyway, so continuing on with numerology, getting through these numbers quickly. If your birthday and the current personal year, the current calendar year total to a number 4, then the 4 has 2 choices. Number 1, it can cause you to box yourself into, if you think about 4 sides, it makes a box. 1, 2, 3, 4. It turns into a box. You can stay in that box and not grow and just hide, kind of like staying in the turtle staying in their shell and hiding. And that keeps you and creates a behavior pattern that's called creature of habit. Get up, go to work, come home, go to bed, get up, go to work, come home, go to bed. It's creature of habit. I suffer from that a lot, and I don't say suffer because that makes me sound like a victim. But born on the 4th month, there's a tendency there for me to be a creature of habit. I do things pretty ritually, Mm-hmm. And then the positive side of the 4, though, can get you to really start working hard to, to make changes in life, because it's the number of organization, getting behind the driver's seat and getting behind that wheel and taking control once again, especially if you went through an emotional roller coaster in a 3. In a 4, you get the opportunity to say, okay, enough is enough. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm taking I'm taking the wheel and I'm going to, create my own path. So that's the positive side of it. Or you can get stuck. And you find people, sometimes when I talk to people, I can tell what personal year they're in just by the way they're speaking, and by the way, the emotional numbers are 3, 6, and 9. So when I see birthdays with 3, 6, and 9s everywhere, I'm like, ooh, they're filtered by their emotional center, not by their intellect, not by intuition, not by anything except for their emotions. So that's the 4. I like the 4 because it puts me to work. I get a lot done without throwing myself off balance. It's like, okay, I'm going to set certain goals today. I'm going to do it, and I do it. And it feels good to do those things, especially when it comes to cleaning my house. So anyway, the 5, I like the 5. If your birthday total to a 5 with your birth month and birthday and the current calendar year, if your birthday total to a 14, then 1 plus 4 equals 5. Then you're in a 5-year. A 5-year is about change. So people change their careers or change their jobs, or change their residence. They also change their residence in a 1, too, because that's a beginning. The 1 is a new beginning, so people change residences then. You don't ever want to start anything in a 9, but you want to start everything in a 1. So that kind of put you on hold for a while, Maria.
I know, for a while, forever.
Yeah, it did. It did. I'm like, sorry. And don't even start relationships in a 9, and don't start them in a 1 either, because a 1 has to be about you, one person, not 2. And a 2-year still has to do about you because it's about your balance. So it's not about a mate. You can date if you want to, but it doesn't have anything to do with being in a romantic relationship where you give your heart to another person. It's about you giving your heart to yourself and acknowledging yourself and maintaining that balance. So in a 5-year, people do make those changes. Their job changes, opportunities show up, and they are open-minded enough to say, you know what, I keep feeling like I need to move. Well, then move.
Right.
Okay, because that's your intuition telling you to move.
Right.
So
well,
the people.
Go ahead. I want you to hold off on going to 6 because we need to go to a break.
Okay, can I finish 5?
Absolutely.
Okay, so 5 is the unwillingness to change. You're still back in the mentality of like, no, I want to be a creature of habit. I don't want to make any changes. What if this? What if that? The worst questions to ask ourselves, because they get us into trouble, is what if and how. How is it going to happen? Will it change? Because that throws you back into the left brain, which will give you all the reasons why not, because it holds history, including experiences, including negativity, including hurt, and all that kind of stuff. So people then don't do things that they need to because they're afraid of, because what if? So don't ask that question. Just say, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to do. And guess what happens? The entire support of everything that is all good and light and love comes to our side and rearranges our schedule in order to have our back. So we're supported. We're never alone.
That's exactly right. All right, doll, we're going to go to a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.